Hi, Gemini. Welcome to your September 2018 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So, Gemini, as the month begins, the sun is in Virgo, and Virgo is your fourth house of home and family. And I think for a masculine sign like Gemini, that home and family can be a double-edged sword. You may even have kids of your own, you may have a beautiful house, but there's always a part of Gemini that is on the move, that wants variety, that wants to explore, that is restless. And these two energies kind of clash in that sense, where the home environment may feel too confining for the average Gemini. And so you might be ambivalent about family. And regarding the family of origin, depending on who you are, you may have felt like you didn't fit in. And especially if others were trying to get you to be something you're not, by the time you were able to leave, you might have left home. And you may have had limited contact in some cases with family. So a lot of people assume that everybody has perfect childhoods, perfect relationships with the mother, because the fourth house is the mother also. And people really need to know that just because they may have had a Norman Rockwell existence, then not everybody does. And some people, if they have one of these transits where there is more activity or emphasis on home and family, it can be stressful to a person like that. For another person, it may be like, oh, good, now I get a chance to do this. We're all different, and we all come from different places. So I'm putting it out there like that. I'm not going to act like it's bad. I'm not going to act like it's necessarily something that you find a great thing. But it is what it is, right? So the sun is there. The sun being in that fourth house means that your energy is kind of wrapped up in that area of life. Now, this could just be your own home. Maybe you're trying to sell a home, or you just bought a home and you're trying to decorate it. It could be something along those lines too. And actually, yeah, because Mercury goes into that fourth house on the 5th. And so that means that Mercury can bring contracts, okay? And actually, you ruled the third house of communication and things like that. And that was where Mercury went retrograde in Leo. And so there might have been some kind of a contract that got all screwed up, and now things are back on track, and you can sign at the dotted line, on the dotted line, and things like that. You know, this is totally ADD, but I'm going to say it anyway, because if anyone would appreciate it, it would be a Gemini. Why is it that some people say standing on line instead of what I say, and I think people in the Midwest, we say standing in line. But people on the East Coast, and I think people in Europe, say standing on line. You're not standing on a line, you're standing in a line, aren't you? I don't know. Anyway, totally random. Well, not totally random, but yeah, kind of. So that's what's happening. And you may be communicating with your mother. Okay, so that's the first indication, along with the sun in the fourth house, of possible open channel of communication with your mother. On the very next day, on the 6th, Saturn turns direct in Capricorn. So thank goodness, because Saturn has a disciplining, is that a word, effect on us in whatever house it's transiting through. For you, this is the 8th house of other people's money. Okay, so Saturn in the 8th house can actually be very good. People tend to think of Saturn as limitations, but Saturn is also about organization, discipline, getting your act together. And in the 8th house, if you are somebody who, for instance, has been dealing with an inheritance. Now, this could be with the father, because Saturn represents the father. So maybe something was haywire with this when Saturn was retrograding and didn't go the way that you wanted it to go. Maybe even his side of the family, I don't know, were interfering. And now you can make some headway. Maybe there were people that were being very, very careless about the estate. And perhaps you're taking charge. I don't know. But this is good news about that. And you can kind of like move forward in these matters and feel that things are going well. Also, if you are married, you have a spouse, the other person, it could be that something, if they were trying to pay a loan back, somehow they got off track, and it has affected you because you have shared resources. The 8th house is called shared resources too. And you may have been undisciplined in this area yourself with paying back a loan of your own. I should have really said your own loan more than somebody else's. But it could be, any decisions that your partner made and how it has affected you. That could certainly be on tap here. On the 9th, Venus has been in Libra in that 5th house, which is really romantic because the 5th house is love. If you're an artist, the 5th house is creativity. And this is wonderful for really maybe getting your aesthetic mojo back. If you've been feeling uninspired, Venus in the 5th house can have you maybe even looking at everyday life with new eyes, and seeing the beauty in things. I just got a cell phone. I sound like 100 years old. I just got a cell phone, one of those newfangled cell phones. I know that's not a cell phone, a smartphone. But that's even kind of like I sound like I'm 100. I just got a smartphone. Back last October. I can't believe it's been almost a year now that I've had a smartphone. I resisted it because I was like, I don't want to be on the internet 24/7. But I ended up getting one because the technology is just forcing the issue. And it's been, it's been fine. It hasn't been anything major as a change. And, I have this camera. Of course, I did have a camera on the other phone. So maybe this is all just like silly of me even bringing it up. But the point being that taking pictures can be so cool if you're taking pictures of things that we normally don't think of as beautiful. I just love seeing things that are even industrial, because that's not something that I typically am interested in, but the lines. And I get that from Antonioni movies, I think, and very inspired by how he used to film work sites, for instance, construction sites. So now I look at these mundane types of things that are not supposed to be attractive as really interesting, like the lines that an architect would appreciate. And so you might be doing the same thing, and that is always very enriching in life. And then also I want to just note too that Venus in the 5th house can be you being very social and going to a lot of parties for some reason. I don't know why, but maybe, and who knows, maybe that's where you meet this person that you are attracted to. And then Venus goes into the 6th house on the 9th. And this is the same day that you have a new moon in the 4th house of home and family. So very interesting. The 6th house is a practical house. It's a work house. It could be that you are receiving a raise because Venus can bring money to the house that she transits in. And just overall, good vibes at work, good relationships with coworkers, And maybe you have even moved into a new office that's nicer looking and perhaps away from some of the snakes, so to speak. So with that new moon in Virgo, maybe this is a new house. Maybe that's the document that you signed. Perhaps you're coming to some arrangement with your mother about something. Maybe it's about a father's estate, and that's what forced you to talk to her. And I don't mean that you can't stand your mother, but maybe that initiated a lot of back and forth with her. But perhaps just a new understanding or new boundaries that you're setting. Who knows? Something along those lines. And then on the 12th, Mars goes from Capricorn to Aquarius. Now, why this is important is that when Mars retrograded, it began in Aquarius. So it's going back to where it all started. And there is, it's coming out of its shadow, in other words. This is important because the transit began in your 9th house of the higher mind, of foreign travel. Something may have put a trip, a long-distance trip, a vacation on the back burner. And now it's full on. Now you can do that. Again, with the Mercury angle, maybe it was like a passport issue. And by the way, since Mars has been in that 8th house, it will be for the first 12 days, that could be some kind of conflict regarding other people's money, including perhaps an estate. And that you are, just maybe you kind of laid down, Gemini, and allowed people to walk over you at first, and then you're like, hold up, wait a second, I'm not having this. And you're going to stand up for yourself against perhaps siblings or other family members who are trying to get a piece of the pie, but maybe they don't deserve that pie, the piece of the pie, or maybe they're trying to take too much. Maybe they're being greedy. On the 21st, well, let me just say that when Mars goes into the 9th house, it is some kind of maybe travel that you're just itching to go on as a typical Gemini, wanting to move, wanting to experience new sights, loving variety, not wanting the same old, same old. This could be also some kind of publishing endeavor that you are just finally getting off the ground. With Mercury, this is the other thing too, Mercury retrograde in your sign, in the house that you rule, in the 3rd house, that's the house of writing. So if you were writing a book, Gemini, and you decided to revise it, something didn't feel right, now you might be ready to publish it, and you're really like gung-ho about it. And you're putting a lot of effort into it. So that could be what Mars represents as well. On the 21st, Mercury goes into Libra, that 5th house, talking to somebody that you're really into. Maybe in play, going back and forth. Perhaps with Venus there, it was just like a feeling of romantic attraction. Now it's actually talking. The next day, Sun in the 5th house, more of that romantic energy. Perhaps, really feeling that strong sense of love for the person. You will have a new moon here that is coming up, I believe it's October 8th. So that could be the time when a relationship is really fully formed. Who knows? But very romantic month for you. And then on the 24th, there is a full moon in Aries. Aries is your 11th house of the collective, of friendships, group associations, your hopes and wishes. So you may fulfill one of those wishes that you've longed for. Perhaps it's all about love for you. Maybe you've been like saying, gosh, when am I going to find my soulmate or twin flame? And voila, here it is. Maybe this has to do with your novel that maybe it takes off like gangbusters. Who knows? But this can also be ending a friendship or ending your association with a group of people. And maybe it's like a social circle. And if that's the case, Gemini, it's only because you're connecting the dots. Perhaps you're realizing that you have been surrounding yourself with people that do not have the same goals that you have anymore. These could be like friends from your hometown. With that new moon in the 4th house, this could even be like you going back to your hometown. Maybe you even bought property in the place where you live. And it's like you're experiencing this place with new eyes because you're not the same person. Was it Thomas Wolfe, you can't go home again? And just that idea, you can't enter the same river twice. Even if you try to recreate something, you're a totally different person. If you are the same person as you were when you were a teenager, God help you, then it means that you have just stagnated for all these years. But that's virtually impossible. And so you may have come back into the area because you felt nostalgic for some reason. And maybe if you're taking care of a parent or a mother, for instance, and yet then you go, wow, these are the people I grew up with, and yet they seem like their interests haven't matured, or they haven't broadened their perspective on life. And it's like the more time you spend with them, the more you realize they're just not where you're at right now. And that's fine. That doesn't say anything against them. It's just we're constantly growing, and sometimes we grow in different directions. Okay, Gemini, that's what I have for you. So if you'd like a real deal personalized version of this, because this is very general, and all of you have different times of birth, different degrees of Gemini rising, for sure. And some of you may be watching for the sun sign. That's a solar chart. But the natal chart is the one that is used for predictive purposes, although my readings are much more than just giving you nice dates or something like that. I like to help people really feel self-empowered by understanding themselves better, hopefully. Okay, the links to my 2 natal chart type of readings are below. I also have love readings that incorporate the natal chart too. Take care of yourselves. Bye.